Hi, everyone. I'm Margaret Telsch-Williams, the Director of Information and Referral for 201 Virginia, here to talk to you today about using temporary staff to mine for community resource specialists gold. So let's get right into it with our history. Before COVID, we had a standard hiring of, you advertise a position, interview whoever happens to apply, pick someone, hire them, train them, and in 3 to 4 months, suddenly you find out they're not really a good fit, and you've kind of wasted all of that time, not to mention that it's a human resources nightmare. When the pandemic hit, all of a sudden 201 Virginia became the hotline for Virginia Department of Health. And immediately we had some emergency funding and we needed more resource specialists to answer questions about the pandemic. So we reached out to a temp agency at the time and just said, we need people fast. And as soon as we got them in, we trained them for just answering these questions, and we threw them on the phones. And what happened was we found out that actually some of them were pretty good, and we caught ourselves wondering, how do we keep this individual? So that's the processes I'm going to talk about today, like what has worked for us. But I will say, as of right now, after fine tuning, of course, and this has taken some years, we currently have about 50% of our staff were already with us before COVID. They're what we call our legacy staff. And 50% are people that did do temporary work that we've hired on, that we felt passionate enough about keeping, that we've kind of brought them in and kept them with us. So now all of our new community resource specialist staff start out as temporary workers. We kind of always do attempt to hire position going forward because this has worked so well. The only exception to that is the staff that we do hire directly came from a 211 world, whether that's our state, someone else's, town. We do hire directly those individuals that want to return to us or come back to 211 in some capacity, but otherwise it's really all just temps. So here's what's worked. For starters, you have to think about the partnership that you have with the temp agency. Teach that temporary agency what you need, what this position is about, how hard it is, the kind of tech skills they need to have. But you also need to learn what the temp agency's processes are. What are their fees? How do they do timekeeping? What kind of information are they going to give the individual before they start working? We've got some automated forms we need filled out. It's been lovely to have the temp agency send them those links before we even talk to them. So also don't be afraid to leave that temp agency. We're not with the same one we started with. There was communication breakdowns. We didn't like their timekeeping, to be honest. So we switched it up, and we have a really great relationship with the agency we use now. So after you work on the partnership of the agency itself, it comes down to selection. And this is when we give a shout out to them that, hey, we've got a temp to hire spot open. Who do you have? They will send us back, 3 or 4 resumes to skim through. When I look through those resumes, the thing I'm looking for most is soft skills and staying power. It doesn't matter if they have been on the phones before or not. That's a plus. It's not bad. But really, I want to see soft skills and staying power. So I look for a lot of customer service background where they were there for years. So somebody that's jumped from phone bank to phone bank, every 6 months, I'm not so interested in. But individuals that, worked at a hotel front desk for 10 years, I'm definitely wanting to talk to them. So also just be brutal as you're skimming through those resumes. Don't feel like you owe it to anybody to talk to them. Just if something doesn't look right to you, just set it aside. Don't interview them. But we do tell the temp agency who we'd like to talk to, who do we want to interview. And in that process is where we set the expectations, and we're real honest about what this job is like. We want to know if they actually want to do this work. So we talk about metrics. We talk about telecommuting, saying that it's not a substitute for child or elder care, that you have to be in a private location in your home, you need good Wi-Fi. We cover all those real detailed things. We also talk about the nature of calls, that these calls can get hard, that burnout is the thing that gets most people when they struggle with this job. So we try to put all that up front. And we like to discuss what I call the first week. And this isn't their first week of training with us. This isn't the beginning of them being with us. This is their first week when they're truly on the phones by themselves. And I always try to tell them, you will know in that first week whether you like this job or not, whether it's for you or not. And if you have any thought that you could just fake your way through, it's not going to happen. People have to genuinely be checked into this job and want to do it, or it doesn't work. So we talk about leaving. We talk about it's okay if you don't like it, walk away. You don't owe us anything. Just go. If you find that first week or at any time that this really isn't for you, it's never going to feel better, basically. And that's kind of a sad reality. But burnout happens. It's never going to get better. So if you don't genuinely rock with this work, it's not going to last. After we've interviewed and we've brought somebody in, then we start working on actually getting them trained. And there's a couple things here for what's worked for us. Start off setting that pace. We teach them how to use the phones. We teach them how to use the database. We give them one skill. In our case, that's utilities. And we get them on the phones. And that may seem a little brutal, but if I've talked about that first week that I want them to have, then in this case, I want them to have that first week as soon as possible so that we know if it's a good fit or not. Because we're also going to walk away if it's not working. So I want them to start taking utility calls and let us see how they're doing, how they're interacting. And then we only add new skills as they show proficiency and confidence in previous skills. So I'm not giving them housing or any of our specialized partnerships until I know that they're doing really well with what they've already been given. I think this is a crucial piece, is don't overwhelm them, because they are temps. They're not coming from the health and human services sector. This is brand new to them. Let them kind of get settled in. What we usually find is that the people that work out, they really already like it. They feel like they're affecting change. They're making people's days better, even when they can't give them, referrals necessarily. They feel like they've made a difference in their day. So that's the biggest piece, is just training. Take it slow and really train for confidence. Next is culture. Because 50% of our staff started out as temps, we have a good culture of assistance and support. And what I mean by that is that anyone can ask a question at any time, and anybody can answer that question provided that they're correct. So there's no shame in asking a question. There's no shame in blanking and not remembering what a taxonomy term is, and asking, hey, what do I do for Social Security? So we have that culture set. But here's where we also watch, and I say be okay with making clean breaks, because if you find someone asking the same questions over and over and over, is there a competency issue? Are they just not getting it? Or is it a confidence issue and you just need to loop back to training, try again, keep working on it? But this other place where you see them asking questions and asking for help is the time where you recognize whether or not this is going to work or not. And then next is oversight. We treat our temporary workers just like a regular employee. So they are trained, they're handed off to a supervisor, and that supervisor does one-on-ones with them every month. They check in with them. They talk about the bad days. They talk about, whether or not they want to be hired on, what the expectations are of being hired on. And we've at this point had months in of positive experiences or watching good changes, things like that. And we kind of know if we're interested too. So our last step is just hire when ready. But my ... here is no red flags. If you have any hesitation whatsoever, do not hire. Don't bring them in, or talk to them about improvement and say, I want to keep you here. You're doing really, really great on the phones, but you're having some days where you come in late. I have to see that improve over the next month. So almost like a performance improvement plan, but not formal. But so absolutely, as soon as you think that they're ready to go and you've seen some staying power and some resiliency, bring them on board. So if you have any questions at all and you want to talk to me about it or ask anything, you have my email here on the